I recently went on a trip to Utah. I had a conference in Salt Lake City, so I decided to go a couple of days early so I could go to Moab. As a photographer and mountain biker, I've always wanted to go to Moab. It's really just a 4-hour drive, and it goes by really quick. And there's a lot of nice things to see along the way. My goal in Moab was really to do some landscape photography and to record footage for my journey into vlogging and YouTube. To get the most of my time, I did an off-road tour with a company called Navtech Expeditions. They take you around in a Land Cruiser and show you things you would never be able to get to on your own. So in my 1.5 days in Moab, I ended up seeing 5 major attractions. With Navtech, I saw 2 national parks, Canyonlands and Arches, and on my own, I covered Dead Horse Point, Fisher Towers, and Scenic Byway 128. So beyond showing you a really beautiful place, Moab and Utah in general are everything you've ever heard. I want to point out some things about going to Utah at the end of winter, especially if you're a landscape photographer and you're thinking about going there. First, the lighting. In wintertime, the angle of the sun is lower, and this enables you to take pictures for more hours throughout the day without fighting really harsh shadows. Also, the light at lower angles, it's like almost sideways. It really enhances textures and details, especially within the rock formations. The second point about going to Moab in winter for photography is that the skies are super clear and crisp. Cold air reduces the haze, and this is really awesome, especially if you're trying to shoot distant mountain ranges. The third benefit are the snow-covered peaks. Your mountain peaks look better when they're covered in snow. It also provides a nice contrast between the dark red rock and the landscape. And finally, there's fewer tourists. So not only will you get better rates on hotels, I think I paid like $119 for a 4-star hotel room, you're also going to have an easier time taking pictures because you're not negotiating around crowds of people when you're trying to get your shot. So my first spot was Dead Horse Point. I got to the park at the beginning of golden hour, so I drove to a popular overlook as I was really pressed for time. Yeah, I arrived kind of late because I really wasn't planning to do photography that day. After a 5-hour flight from Miami and then another 4-hour drive from Salt Lake City to Moab, I was thinking I was just going to take it easy. But the weather was so amazing that I knew I had to get out and make the most of my time. So here are a few of my shots. I set up both of my Fuji X cameras on the tripods. On my X-T4, I had a Viltrox 13mm for the wider shots. And on the XD2, I had a Tamron 18-300 zoom, which is a lens that I'm really starting to like more and more. It's great because it gives me a lot of flexibility with such a wide range of focal lengths. I was really struggling to find a strong composition, and unfortunately I was running out of time because the sun was starting to set. I tried to get some close-up abstract kind of shots where I could emphasize the texture of the rocks, but nothing was really working. I saw a couple taking some selfies, so I offered to take a silhouette of them, the sun setting behind them. But finally, after realizing that my images just weren't speaking to me, I decided to just throw myself into the scene, which is always my last resort when I can't find something in the scene to really hone in on to tell a more interesting story. So overall, Dead Horse Point was really a beautiful spot, and you should definitely add it to your list of places to see, especially if you go to Moab. So my time in Canyonlands, as well as Arches, was more about just sightseeing in a 4x4 Land Cruiser and taking in as much of the sights as quickly as possible than it was slow, deliberate photography. That being said, because the lighting was so perfect, I was able to keep shooting for the entire day without any real harsh, contrasty light, which generally happens during the midday of summertime. All of these shots were taken handheld, and some were taken while we were driving. The tour from Navtech takes you to some really interesting spots. First, we learned about petroglyphs, which are these engravings in the rocks created over thousands of years ago. And then we drove along White Rim Road before making a stop at Muscle Man Arch. From there, we made our way to Schaefer Trail. Canyonlands is huge. It covers over 527 square miles. We toured an area known as Island in the Sky, and we probably only saw about 5% of the entire park. On our way from Canyonlands to Arches, we stopped at Willow Springs Dinosaur Track Site. This place has dinosaur tracks that have been there for 100 million years. They are still preserved inside the rock. After the dinosaur site, we went to Arches National Park. This park has over 2,000 sandstone arches. These arches were formed by natural erosion that has taken place over millions of years. We saw three of the more famous ones: Delicate Arch, Sand Dune Arch, and Eye of the Whale. On my last day in Moab, I went to Fisher Towers for a sunrise shoot. I left my hotel room at about 5:30 and drove east for 16 miles on Scenic Byway 128. There was nobody on the road, and it was kind of a scary drive because I had no cell signal, and my mind started thinking about every possible what can go wrong scenario. When I finally got to the point where you turn right into Fisher Towers, it was about 6 a.m. I was surprised to see no paved road into the park. Luckily, I was driving a Jeep, but again, my city boy brain kept thinking about all kinds of scary things, so I decided to wait a little longer before heading down that dirt road. By 6:20, I started to see some blue hour light, so I slowly started driving toward the spot where I was planning to launch my drone. The drive in was about 1.5 to 2 miles from the main road. So for this shoot, I actually brought my drone in addition to my 2 Fujis. One of the nice things about Fisher Towers, unlike the national parks, is that you're actually allowed to fly your drone. Having the medium telephoto zoom that comes on the DJI Air 3, which is my drone, was really great to capture the details from high above inside those rocks. If you do plan to go to Fisher Towers, I would recommend getting there for sunset, as the most interesting parts of Fisher Tower face west. So if you're there for golden hour at sunset, you'll get some really nice light on the famous towers. Unfortunately, I was there at sunrise, and the infamous towers don't get lit in the early morning. As was the case with my shots at Dead Horse Point, I struggled to find really strong compositions. I also tried to hone in and get some close-up abstract shots, but overall, I'm not feeling like I really captured that trophy shot that I was hoping for. So one recommendation, if you're a landscape photographer, is to do as much planning on your computer or your phone before you get on location. You can use Google Earth to get to know an area and then plan your shots. Always try to find compositions with good leading lines to help you draw your viewers into the scene. For my wider shots, I always try to have multiple layers in the scene. A foreground layer, a midground layer, and a background. Yes, it's not always possible, but when it's possible, try to create depth by having multiple layers. But with a little Google Earth planning, you can do a much better job getting to know a place and envisioning your shots, so the likelihood of coming home with that winning image is so much better. So on my way back from Fisher Towers to Moab, I drove along Scenic Byway 128 going west. This is actually one of the most incredible drives in the entire Southwest. It's actually considered by many to be the most beautiful drive in the Southwest. It starts in Moab and it runs parallel with the Colorado River towards I-70. On my way in, it was pitch black, so I didn't really see anything, but on the way back, while I was driving, I took some footage with my DJI action camera, and here's just a little bit of a glimpse of what it looks like. And finally, if you enjoyed watching this video, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. If you're a filmmaker or a photographer and ever need help with editing or retouching, check out our website, pixera.com. We make life easier for content creators. You shoot and we edit. It's that simple.